I know it's all fictional and it's for fun, but it's just hilarious how fantastical that was.
It's hard to take John Krasinski as like really devious kind of character.
What is going on?
When someone's like, you stole from my boss, he's like, well, it's kind of arbitrary or ambiguous whose painting this is. Hello, and welcome to the Pop Culture Contrarian with Thomas, Sterling, and Andrew.
Hello.
Hey guys.
Before we get started, go check out patriotpostshop.com and buy some merchandise. You can get this shirt that I am wearing. It says American Patriot on it. You can get mugs, coffee, books, stickers, whatever you'd like. Go check that out. That's one of the best ways to support us. The best way to support us is to go to patriotpost.us and subscribe to our free daily newsletter. It's all the right news. It's right. It's free. Go do that. We watched Fountain of Youth, starring John Krasinski and Natalie Portman.
From The Office and Star Wars.
Yes, that is what they're from.
The Office meets Star Wars in a pyramid.
We picked this movie because it kind of looked like a Indiana Jones, National Treasure, Mummy type movie, you know, kind of fun. I think it was pretty fun. What did y'all think?
I thought it was fun. I mean, obviously we'll get into all of the nitty gritty meters, you know, our rating score, but I would say just for a popcorn flick or just an evening on the couch, it's great.
It was fun. It was a little too long, I think, and it wasn't ready for theaters. That's my take.
Probably why it didn't go to theaters.
Probably why.
I actually think it probably still would have made money in theaters just because, like, I mean, the Minecraft movie is a huge hit this year, and that one's apparently no good either. Not that we saw it. Too long is not something I would have said. It's 2 hours and 5 minutes. It didn't feel too long to me. It did. There were problems with it, but length wasn't one of my problems with it.
It was a little long for me.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So it starts with this character, John Krasinski, and he seems like this happy-go-lucky kind of treasure hunter who's just in it for the adventure kind of thing.
Yeah.
He's, his name's Luke Perdue?
Luke Perdue, yes. And he's being chased by someone he stole something from, and that seems to be pretty normal for him.
Yeah.
In Thailand.
In Thailand,
yes. Yeah. What was the song? Gosh, that actually made an impact on me.
Being sung in Thai.
It was being sung in Thai. Yeah, it was.
Well, the line was chop chop or something, right?
Yeah. Oh no, it was bang bang. I think.
Bang bang. That's it. Yeah.
That classic kind of James Bond-esque sort of sounding music.
James Bond with an added little hint of silliness.
Well, yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. But it was funny to hear it sung in that language. You know, normally it's a English song, so it was funny.
So, yeah, it starts with him and he's being chased through Thailand. And of course, he tries to escape. And the first thing he's supposed to just ride to the airport. He can't do that. He gets on a train, can't do that. And finally, he's like, all right, I've had enough of this. Come pick me up. The movie goes on. There's all sorts of adventures. Of course, the title is Fountain of Youth. Can you guess what they go after? What the big prize at the end of the story is?
I mean, you're looking at the guy who found the Fountain of Youth. It's very far away from here.
Yes, correct.
Got it.
Right in one.
In the driest place in the world.
So why don't you tell the audience, where is the Fountain of Youth located?
No, do we give it away? We want to give all of it away.
Okay.
I kind of already gave it away at the beginning.
You did.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
It's at the Pyramids of Giza since we've danced around it. So the movie goes on and he goes and meets his sister, who's played by Natalie Portman, Charlotte.
Perdue.
Yeah. What did y'all make of Charlotte? Just give me your take on her character throughout the movie, but specifically at the beginning.
I mean, she's trying to distance herself from her past. She is... So some quick backstory. She and her brother were raised by an adventurer, archaeologist kind of dad, stealing artifacts to find big treasures, but then leaving the treasures there because of not grave robbing.
Well, there seems to be a difference because like Luke seems to be going almost full criminal, not quite because he's not really after the money. He's after the adventure. But the dad, I got the idea with the dad was more like Indiana Jones, where he might do something illegal, but it's to protect an artifact or something.
Right. But her character is continuously being pulled and drawn back into this world that she was raised in when she's trying to forge a different new life for herself, a big, sophisticated, she's a director or curator of an art museum, a famous one in Europe. She's married to some hotshot, big C-suite executive guy.
Or formerly.
Well, yes.
The movie opens with their divorce. That's the first
Right.
time you see Natalie Portman.
Yeah.
I mean, her character, she's trying to be the adult. And,
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Luke is kind of the adolescent who never really grew up. He just continues to believe in the adventure. He's like the perpetual, child who's
He's
like,
the interesting uncle.
life is about
Explicitly.
the journey. I mean, they reference that kind of saying it's not about the destination of the journey kind of repeatedly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of the themes they keep hitting on. And it's kind of a rediscovery of who you are via getting back to your roots for her character, at least.
Mm-hmm. When Luke Perdue comes to meet his sister Charlotte, he immediately steals from her art gallery.
Yeah.
And then he coaxes her into assisting him in his theft, which she doesn't really assist him. So she's able to, kind of get off scot-free. But then he drags her back in. And of course, they end up on the lam for most of the movie. Why does he steal the art from her gallery, guys?
It's part of the puzzle to try to figure out with the location of its clues. They're all clues.
Yes.
They're looking for clues to find,
clue.
Yes.
supposedly these famous works of art have a letter that's hidden on them. And
They're all Van Goghs.
Yeah.
Oh, are they all Van Goghs? I thought they were different artists.
Rembrandt.
Are they all Rembrandts? I'm sorry.
Rembrandts.
I'm pretty sure it's a bunch of different artists. I think they said 6
really?
artists coordinated to hide.
Oh, I think
The
you're
path.
right.
Okay.
The Rembrandt was the famous one.
Yeah, the Rembrandt
So
is the
that
one they're
was it.
going after
Yeah.
because they've gotten everything else already.
Anyway, they're getting the code. And so there's an element even of like the Da Vinci Code kind of thrown in on this. It felt like a bunch of different movies where they took elements from and threw it all together.
Well, the hidden letters on the back of the paintings, that's National Treasure.
Yeah,
That's
National Treasure.
National Treasure element there too.
Yeah.
The whole point wasn't to take the art to sell it. It was to take the art to get the clue and then put it back.
Right,
Yeah.
which they do.
So it's more like borrowing.
Yeah, it's borrowing without permission, illegally.
But the raising of the Lusitania.
Right. So
That's my favorite part.
so Luke goes and he steals this art piece from his sister's gallery, and it's the wrong one. It's a Rembrandt had copied his own piece of art to sell it multiple times or something, and so they need the real one, not the copy of it.
But this is, and I don't know if this is accurate or not. They threw this in here that Rembrandt painted. They were both actual Rembrandt paintings, but evidently he did multiples of the same painting. And I don't know if that's accurate or not, but they threw that in there to try to,
Right.
increase the, I guess the
Yes, he did.
mystery.
It's real.
It's real. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a fact.
Yeah. So yeah, she had acquired a real Rembrandt, but it's just a copy of the actual famous piece for her art gallery.
I wonder how they're able to discern which was the first one.
Well, in this case, it's because it has a letter on the back.
I should have known that.
They find out that the Vanderbilts had acquired this real Rembrandt back in the early 1900s and took it with them sailing across the Atlantic in the Lusitania, which if that name doesn't ring a bell, it gets sunk.
Yep. 1910,
The U-boat,
I believe.
Yeah, it must have been after 1910.
No,
That's
it was
Titanic, right?
Yeah.
Because Lusitania was one of the triggers for us entering World War
Yeah,
I.
1912 was the Titanic.
U-boat
Okay.
sunk the Lusitania.
Yeah, I thought it was in 10.
Well, but that wouldn't have brought us into World War I.
No.
What I'm curious,
1915.
Okay.
what I'm curious is, were the Vanderbilts actually on the ship, which historically they may have been? Did they actually have a painting from Rembrandt on this?
See, these are the questions that I always ask Thomas to mention ahead of time, and I forgot today.
I didn't think about these until
Yeah.
you just brought it up, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Well, the movie said so it must be true.
Must.
Right,
True.
because this movie obviously had tons of research put into
and
it.
I love the technology. I don't know how deep the Lusitania is, but I bet it's pretty deep. Maybe not Titanic deep, but it's probably down there.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they say they raise it up, so they raise it above crush depth, which is where like their miniature submarines can't go, to like 100 feet below sea level, and then they raise it up further. I don't know if that's real science, where that's something you can do. You can just attach balloons to a sunken ship and raise it up above the water.
Well,
it was
no.
cool.
Yeah.
They cut that section out so they could raise it. So
Right,
it wasn't the
right.
whole ship.
Yes.
It was sunk not far off the coast of Ireland, I believe. So maybe it wasn't super deep.
Yeah. Alfred Gwynne Vanderbilt, who's the one mentioned in the movie, was in fact on the Lusitania when it sank.
I see.
Yes, the southern coast of Ireland.
So this is a theme that I noticed in particular, this scene with the Lusitania, and also happens in Egypt, and we can get into that. But these are huge, massive international events that they're orchestrating. Like, that, I mean, if you're raising such a famous piece, you're going to have Coast Guard, you're going to have Navy, you're going to have all kinds of interested parties, like countries. Like, what the heck are you doing?
Oh, come on.
And I know it's all fictional and it's for fun, but it's just hilarious how fantastical that was.
I got to say that
It's like every James Bond movie, though.
I know.
James Bond, even though he walks around saying, "Hello, I'm James Bond, I'm a secret agent for MI6, isn't as flashy as these guys were, I don't think. But they get away with it by having their billionaire who funds them just pay everyone off, presumably. And
Presumably.
So they hand wave that. He's bribing everybody, and so they don't care. But I'm not certain if some billionaire wanted to raise part of the Lusitania, if that would be an international event or not. It'd make a news story, maybe, but
I'm sure it would. I don't think you can just go, I'm going to raise this shipwreck.
I mean, there's a line in it where the main character, he's about to steal the family jewels from the Vanderbilt safe, which they're only there for the painting.
Right.
And then his sister, of course, is like, "We're not grave robbers." I'm like, "But you're grave desecrators."
Also, it's not a grave.
No,
and
it's
like,
not.
what good are the jewels at the bottom of the ocean? Just take them, but whatever.
Grave. A lot of people died on that.
Yeah. I will say that I justified that in my head, even though maybe this movie doesn't deserve the effort on my part here, as Natalie Portman Charlotte looking out for her brother Luke, who is always a little bit too enamored of wealth and valuables. And she knows it's like his forbidden fruit. And if he really eats it, then he's going to go full criminal.
I guess so. My one problem when you do that in a movie like this is when you just talk about it rather than actually demonstrate it earlier in the film, so that then it becomes more of a tension piece. She just mentions it about him as if this is something we all know or has been well developed. I
would say they do demonstrate that, because they keep showing him having these dreams where he's seeing first an artifact that he went hunting with his dad, and he sees it, and it's this Aztec mask or something, and it's made of gold, and then his eyes turn to gold, basically, and he puts it in his bag, and then he sees horrible things happen. And that happens, he has that dream 4 or 5 times throughout the movie. And the first one is in Thailand.
Yeah, I didn't interpret that way, but maybe that's what that was trying to get at. It wasn't clear to me that that's what was being depicted.
There's a lot of work this movie could have done to make it better.
Well, it's kind of like to me, it was more that whole Indiana Jones motivation. Like, he's a treasure hunter. And what does a treasure hunter do? He takes the treasure. What he does with the treasure, when in Indiana Jones' case, is it belongs in a museum.
Right.
This is the second time I've had to reclaim my property from you.
That belongs in a museum.
So do you.
And maybe that's, Purdue's case here. I don't know. They don't delve into it as much, but he seems like a good guy.
Yeah. Well, he seems like a harmless criminal type guy. I wouldn't really say he seems like a good guy
Krasinski, to me. So it's hard to take John Krasinski as like some really devious kind of character.
Yeah.
Well, and they toe that line where he doesn't do anything like, even the painting he steals at the very beginning, when someone's like, "You stole from my boss," he's like, "Well, it's kind of arbitrary or ambiguous whose painting this is." Instead of just giving a blow by blow of the whole movie. Let's talk about some of the themes here. One theme I noticed throughout this movie is it's a Guy Ritchie directed movie. And if you know Guy Ritchie, we've talked about some of his movies. He really likes quippy, quick, quite intelligent characters throwing words at each other in, rapid, real quick, snappy stuff. And they try to do that in this. And mostly, to me, what it seemed like is they wrote standard dialogue, and then they pulled out a thesaurus and they found a rare word to insert over a common one. And then they were like, that's smart and quippy. There we go. We did it.
Did they use AI?
No, it fell flat just to that point. And I was expecting more from a Guy Ritchie movie, because Guy Ritchie does great character development with his dialogue like that. And that was just lacking. He does more of the criminal element kind of thing really well. That's what Guy Ritchie's known for.
Yep.
And here it's obviously there is a criminal element, but there's also this kind of adventure kind of thing. And if he had taken more time to make this thing, maybe it just felt rushed. the writing even felt rushed. And I don't know who wrote it, but it seemed like they had a concept and they really didn't flesh it out real well. If they had more time, I think it would be a much more entertaining movie.
Agreed. I think this has the bones of quite a good adventure movie. And instead of giving it the time it needed, they were like, we want this out for the summer, for Apple TV. And so they said, good enough, we'll put it out. If that's all you're after.
Right.
Sure.
But I think it could have been almost great, almost.
But I think they were, at least maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed like based on the end that they were clearly trying to use this as a franchise launcher.
That for sure. Yeah.
And I'm like, this is kind of a weak one for that.
Yeah. Well, and especially they don't do a good job of setting up any kind of franchise launch. Yeah. Because here's another of the themes, or I don't know if it's themes, but one of the plot points in this movie. There's the Fountain of Youth, and they know what they're after from near the beginning of the movie because this billionaire who's dying of cancer is paying them to help find the Fountain of Youth so he can heal himself. And there's this clandestine, shadowy group that's existed for thousands of years that exists to both, and they don't really explain this properly, and this is one of the issues with the writing in this movie, both map out the path to the Fountain of Youth so that someone clever enough can find it, but also make sure no one ever finds it and kill anyone who gets close enough to finding it. And this group has done both of these things, and it's not quite clear why they're doing both of those things. And especially, I don't know if you all felt this way, but I feel like when they find the Fountain of Youth and you find out what it does, I wasn't sure why you needed a clandestine group to hide that. It seems like a self-solving problem to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're not ready to drink,
right,
you're going to die.
Basically, only good people can use the Fountain of Youth and bad people die. I mean,
think, Indiana Jones and the Nazis.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah, it was kind of like a little bit
similar.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where they have,
the arrogant people choose the wrong cup.
They drink from the wrong cup and
wrong cup kills them.
Die.
Right.
He chose poorly.
On the clandestine group, what were y'all's thoughts on all that? Was that executed well in your minds?
It like this was one of those elements that felt like, well, the Last Crusade, Indiana Jones. So there was a group in, we all know the Indiana Jones, where you have the guardians of the Grail. Effectively, they're guarding the kind of the secret and its whereabouts because they see the threat that whoever takes that Grail could use it, for eternal life until the movie kind of is inconsistent at the end because
it is a little.
It's only if you live in that little cave for the rest of your days. But here,
but the movie that's a tangent. But even that in Indiana Jones, they still try to take the cup away, and presumably they think it's still going to work.
Right.
So
it just won't let itself be taken away. I think they try to set it up. It was almost, that wasn't very clear because then you also have the Interpol group, the inspector chasing after him too. So you have these two groups chasing after them for presumably different motives until the end when they're all like, well, handshake and we all get along.
Right. Yeah. So the one, she calls herself the Hand of Mercy. Esme is chasing after John Krasinski, Luke Perdue, this whole movie. She's working for this clandestine group hiding the Fountain of Youth. She's constantly trying to kill Luke Perdue and not able to kill him. And also everyone else who should be able to kill people is unable to kill anybody.
Yeah.
And
nobody really, people die, but they don't.
I think the only person who dies is someone who is obviously a red shirt in that final whole sequence where they go down to the fountain and that one security guard comes with them just so he can die. Like you knew the moment he stepped down on the elevator, he was going to die.
Right.
Yeah. Zero main characters die.
Right. And it's just interesting to me. Guy Ritchie likes his violence, and this has violence. It has big car chases, and the action sequences are done quite well, I'd say. But my thought was just, you don't have to make the stakes life or death, especially if you're not going to kill anybody.
Yeah.
If you're not going to kill anybody, just don't make the stakes life or death. Make it, maybe one extreme person is willing to kill one other person at the end of the movie. But the rest of the time, it's just like, I'm trying to throw you in jail or something like that. That would have worked just fine, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think the other thing, as I was thinking about this, Guy Ritchie movies are also known for their colorful language. And I think this had a rating probably...
Must have been PG.
PG, I'm guessing, because it was pretty clean that way that I recall. To your point with the violence...
Oh, PG-13. Yeah. That's surprising.
Well, I think the violence, there was a little bit at the end with the big gun shootout at the pyramid. Which, Yeah, it was. In any other movie, it might have really kind of made it interesting. It just felt so incongruent to what was happening as they're down in the pyramid versus outside.
So they introduce, and this is just, we're kind of making this movie sound bad, worse than it is, I think, because it's a good popcorn flick to watch with your family. If you don't mind guns, then probably I wouldn't worry about having your kids watch this, I don't think, because there's no sexual stuff. There's not really any bad language. But yeah, at the end of the movie, when they finally get to the pyramids, the billionaire just suddenly is like, don't worry, I've learned my lesson about not having security, so I've hired security. And basically he's hired these mercenaries or something.
Yeah.
And then they just decide, for no clear reason, we're going to try to kill every single one of these Interpol policemen.
Yeah. And it's a massive shootout at the pyramid. And then like no one else gets involved.
Right.
Like the Egyptian army doesn't come out.
And you might think, like, if you're not a geography buff, you're like, okay, but they're at the pyramids. It's in the middle of the desert, right? And the movie makes it explicitly clear, no.
No, I mean, and you can see in the shots, it's right outside Cairo. I mean, it's a massive bustling metropolis of people, and the pyramids are just like right there.
It's literally, there's like a big main road. You see all of Cairo, there's a big main road, then maybe like a football field to the nearest of the pyramids.
Yeah.
And online, you can find pictures of, there's a Pizza Hut where you can take pictures of the Pizza Hut logo on their glass window and the pyramids out the back.
Oh my gosh.
Those pharaohs love their pizza.
Yes, they did. Just in case you needed a reminder of American cultural imperialism.
Well, yes.
What were some things y'all did like about this movie? There were parts I liked. What were some things y'all liked?
I loved the conspiracy theory illusions.
Yeah, there were a few of those.
Yes.
Which one are you thinking of?
Well, there's two in particular that I really liked. The first one that I really liked was the whole everything underneath the pyramids.
The pyramids, yeah.
Very recently, there's that big Twitter release or X release of the sonar or whatever kind of scans they've used to map underneath the pyramids. And supposedly there may be some mega structures underneath.
Wouldn't they say that the pyramids are just at the top of a giant obelisk?
Yes, that's basically what it said. Where the obelisk goes 2 kilometers underground and the pyramid is just the tip. Yeah. And if you don't know what an obelisk is the Washington Monument is an obelisk. So think all of the Washington Monument is underground except for the very tippy top where it points.
Yeah. And so this makes that true. and that was awesome. I just thought it was hilarious. I also really loved the use of sound waves to move things around inside.
There's
this idea that the pyramids are gigantic, either generators or they like create, use elements to create power,
or their grain storehouses,
or their grain, yes, or their spaceships, or any number of things,
technological marvels,
right? And using some kind of ancient technology that we don't understand, but could be woken up if we knew how, and so they figure out how to use sound to like levitate things, and maybe even this could have been used to build the pyramids. I don't know.
Well, so that's one of the conspiracy theories about how they built the pyramids. If you're wondering how they built the pyramids, they used these things called logs, and they rolled the stones over the logs. That's how they did it.
Yes.
But the conspiracy theorists love to come up with other ways, and one of the ways they've theorized is if you generate just the proper frequencies and you concentrate it on a big multi-ton rock, and it's really loud and the frequency's really harmonizing with the stone, you can make the stone levitate. And there's something to this. You can make sand form shapes just with sound waves and stuff, but 2-ton rocks, it would have to be a really big sound. And so they do that, and then they're just able to just easily move this big rock that's in their way out of the way. It's like a locking mechanism is what it's for. And that's one of the theories for how they built the pyramids is with sound waves. And no, they didn't. So the other thing that they mentioned is the Wicked Bible. And I know there's some conspiracy theories about this. I don't know if anything they mentioned was specifically related to any of those, but the Wicked Bible is a misprint of the King James Bible from like 20 years after the first printing, where the 10 Commandments have a typo. And instead of saying, thou shalt not commit adultery, it says, thou shalt commit adultery.
Whoopsies.
And this was a real Bible. That's a real thing that happened. And so they have to go track down one of the few remaining copies. And there's another misprint in Deuteronomy. I can't remember what they said that misprint was.
Yeah, I kind of got lost on their needing to get that copy of the Bible. It was some map element or
the letters on the back of all the paintings spelled out the word wicked.
Right. And somehow that led to the next. It got a little bit kind of convoluted, I felt.
There were a lot of red strings on a cork board.
Yes.
Yeah.
Insert that meme here.
Yeah.
That was one thing I felt. One thing I like in like National Treasure, or The Mummy doesn't do this quite as much, but it's been a while since I've seen it, so maybe it does. But in National Treasure particularly, you really feel like the main character, Nicolas Cage, is really smart. And you walk with him as he figures out these puzzles that he keeps getting faced with.
Right.
And you see step by step how he's going from, man, this is a puzzle, to, oh, here's exactly what it means. Mm-hmm. And you're like, wow, he's really so smart. In this movie, they're faced with a puzzle, and most of the time they're like, man, I'm really stumped. Let's let the computer have at it. And then the computer's like, here's what it means. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't really feel clever to me.
Yeah. It is.
Well, they did have
like an AI thing.
They did have the boy who was kind of like a savant when it came to certain elements.
A music savant. Yeah.
Music.
Well, he's the one who figured out music to levitate the stuff.
Right. So there was, but they don't, other than he is kind of just along for the ride, they don't delve much into him as a character.
Right. Yeah. He's there to give one particular puzzle piece to get them to the pyramids, and then once they're at the pyramids, he's there to play the music, and that's pretty much what he does.
Maybe that was where the Wicked Bible came in.
It was after the Wicked Bible. They found code in the Bible that what they thought was math, and he's like, it's not math, it's music.
It's music, right?
That's right.
There is a whole family aspect of this guy's going to get his sister, and then to kind of be a male mentor to his nephew. He's not exactly who I'd choose to be a mentor, but you could do worse.
Yeah.
And the kid's dad seems like a real jerk. You know, there's some kind of family aspect there that's kind of nice. But in general, what I would say is this movie kind of suffers from stunted morality, where they're trying to have like some morals and some good takeaways, and they just don't really believe in anything. And so the morals end up being, make sure you care about at least one other person more than you care about yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can do worse than that, but that's not much.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was the kind of the notion of it. The destination is not as important as the journey kind of thing, which is also kind of a little bit flawed.
Yes.
Not that the journey does matter, but where you're going also matters. There are such things as treasures. And so there was kind of this kind of play on like, what is the real treasure? And then after they've gone through the whole experience of discovering the Fountain of Youth and then what it does and everything else.
Spoiler, it heals. If you're good. If you're bad, it doesn't.
So basically everybody dies.
But but Luke's character then comes out at the end of it and he's like, I'm still like kind of looking for the treasure.
There's things dropping on them as they're trying to escape. And I'm wondering, is it like some advanced mechanism and those lift up afterwards so you can get back in? Because it seems like the Fountain of Youth issue is solved because it's like 400 feet underground, buried by stone. But maybe you're able to get back in one day.
I interpreted it not so much as collapsing, but actually intentionally closing back up.
Okay.
My one problem with that, though, was the manner in which they got in. They basically like blew through a corner of a wall with their
explosives.
Not explosives. It was their
air hammers.
Air hammers.
Oh.
They just start hacking away and to enter through things. And I'm like, well, then how would the passage be already open if they just went through this one corner and it's all open? And yet when they're coming back, the passage is closing itself because it wasn't just a collapse. It was all these different things moving in at timing. So they all could kind of dodge around them as they're trying to run out.
Well, and so the passage leads up directly to the corner they break through.
Yes.
Presumably, Charlotte mentions that if you just give me a little bit, then I can find my way in. But they have to set up the villain being a villain at this point, so he doesn't let her. And we won't spoil that. And so they blow through. Presumably, there was some mechanism to open up that part of the wall, though.
They did some of that mechanism figuring out, which was satisfying and fun because that's what you want in kind of a puzzle adventure movie, which is basically what this is.
Yes.
I think that it, like, once again, it suffers from lack of time and development.
Yes.
Just better writer, more characterization, not better writer, better writing, more characterization, and, just try to actually make your puzzle meaningful. Because I do, that is maybe my biggest critique of this movie is the puzzle does not really seem to matter to me. You explore the pyramids properly and you find it. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Right. And how many, centuries have these pyramids been explored?
2 centuries now.
At least.
Since, I guess long ago they were explored.
Grave robbers
there were thousands of years.
That's what I'm saying. So I always find that the unbelievable element of like, we've discovered some new opening nobody's ever seen before. And we've done it in 3 minutes. And it's like,
yeah. Well, you see, they knew about the music or something. I'm really not sure why they were able to find this and no one else ever was.
Like, because people clearly knew about it in like the time of these paintings being created.
Right. Which was 400 years before, which is long before Egyptology.
Yeah.
Like there was no Egyptology in 1600.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Don't think too hard about this.
Yes.
Movie.
Don't think too hard about this movie.
Just eat your popcorn.
Yeah.
Enjoy the show.
Yeah. The visuals are quite good, I'd say. I'll cut myself up. Let's do our scores.
Let's hit the scores. Yep.
Yeah. All right, I'll get started on the first one. So woke free meter, I gave it an 8. It's pretty woke free. My big critique is Esme, the girl who's also
girl boss,
kind of a love interest.
She's kind of a girl boss.
She's only kind of a girl boss. I wouldn't say she's too bad, but she does beat up fully grown men with her super martial arts abilities, which I'm just like, okay, I know this is a staple of Hollywood at this point, but that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It doesn't. If it's a trained man who's visibly muscular, a tiny little girl who weighs 100 pounds soaking wet is not beating him up. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Physics.
Right.
But this movie suspends physics often.
Yes.
So
the only other kind of cultural critique I had is I didn't feel like you had to have Charlotte's character going through a divorce, but that's pretty minor these days. Divorce is so common. So what about y'all for woke free? Andrew?
I would put it at an 8 as well. And I mean, really, there's little things, but it was generally pretty just, I guess you could call it white bread secular.
Lowest common denominator.
Yeah. I mean, there didn't seem to be any kind of overt agenda other than just, general secularism.
Right.
Yeah, I gave it a 6 for basically the same things
you just rated it more harshly.
Yeah, I find that they have to do this notion of there's always like one of the characters is going to be this strong woman who's going, that you have to is your big opponent, and it's just like, but you can have a strong female character, but why is it always we have to do her like she's also strong like a man and can beat people up?
Right.
I get tired of that trope because it's.
I will say that they choreograph it well, where she's not pitting her strength against theirs, but it's just generally, come on.
Yeah, she's just like super fast and able to like.
The one other woke thing is, and this is always going to happen, but every group of more than 3 people is perfectly racially diverse.
I know, that was the other
racially
thing
and gender diverse, always.
I was gonna note that.
Yeah.
So that's why I gave it a 6.
Yeah. All right, IQ, Thomas, you want to start on that one?
I gave it a 5. I think the writing is just leaves you wanting more. It could have been it would have been so much more entertaining, I think, if they'd done a better job of writing dialogue for the characters that seemed to work a little bit better and would give you a little more window into the characters.
Yeah. Andrew?
6.
Yeah.
And for similar reasons, I mean, it was half baked. That's really the best way to describe it, I think.
Yeah. I gave it a 4 again for similar reasons. I have 2 specific critiques on the writing in the IQ though. One on the Lusitania. So they bring the Lusitania to the surface. Luke and Charlotte go on to find the painting. Esme shows up with her commandos to get them out or something. The helicopter she rides in on, she's trying to steal the painting from them so they can't find it. The helicopter they ride in on gets shot, and they explicitly say, I'm going back to base. And then Luke and Charlotte get rescued on a boat, and you see them being pulled out of the water onto the boat. And Esme is still on the Lusitania as it sinks, and there's no explanation given until she shows up in the next sequence, and she's perfectly fine, and she didn't drown. And it's like,
How?
Well, her helicopter was gone. They didn't pick her up, and she's just there. Like,
Yeah.
okay, just explain that a little bit.
There's a big plot hole there.
It's a pretty big plot hole. And then the other thing has slipped my mind, but that's my big plot hole, and that's why I give it a 4 on well written.
Yeah, good observation.
That's an easy thing. One throwaway line, and that's no longer a plot hole.
Mm-hmm.
Artistic value, Andrew.
I gave it a 7. Let me make sure that's what I actually gave it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I have.
Yeah, I gave it a 7. And, I think it was well shot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the stuff that happened was interesting, good camera work, interesting scenery, exotic adventure scenes. And, was it the most awesome looking film ever? No, but it was fine. It's great.
Thomas?
Yeah, similar to 7. It was enjoyable. I mean, they did obviously go film part of the movie at the pyramids.
Right. Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. It wasn't cinematography, so it was pretty good. I did think that, especially the scenes when they were down in the pyramid, that was well done. They took time to get that, especially when they were opening that first puzzle to get in. Mm-hmm. That was really cool how they did the sound and moving the sand. And
that was awesome.
So 7 on that.
Same. I gave it a 6, which I guess I'm really rating it the same as y'all. I just wrote 6 when y'all wrote 7. The sound design in that one puzzle I was struck by. I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. The Lusitania being pulled out of the water, I hadn't seen that before, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
And just everyone in this movie is attractive, which I generally, maybe I've just been brainwashed by Hollywood up until the year 2005 to think everyone in a movie should be attractive. But I think everyone in a movie should be attractive. Yeah. Sue me. Entertainment value. I gave it a 7 on that one. It's a popcorn flick. I wouldn't mind throwing this on with my family just to have something to watch. And there'll be scenes where you're like, ooh, this is pretty cool. And scenes where you're like, whatever, I'll go to the bathroom. But it's a pretty good popcorn flick.
Yeah. I rated it 7 as well. Same reasons.
Gave it a 6.
For the same reason.
Yeah.
Okay. And then legacy score, I gave it a 3. It's a puzzle adventure movie. It'll probably keep getting watched with puzzle adventure movies. I don't think it's as good as something like National Treasure or even National Treasure 2. But it's not like awful or anything.
I gave it a 1. I think no one's going to remember it. I think it's going to get lost in the sauce. I mean, just there's so many things like it that are so much better and have been better. And the things that are already out that already hold the legacy score will continue to supersede this, and it will be lost, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I gave it a 2, slightly better. But I mean, you got the leader in the first 3 Indiana Jones movies are kind of like the top tier. I mean, and then under that, you could put, I guess, National Treasure or The Mummy or Tomb Raider even is, I would argue, better than this. And each of them, I would point to their lead actor or actress is more compelling in a way than, Luke Perdue was. They just didn't develop him too well.
I agree. I felt like, honestly, John Krasinski kind of held the character back a little bit, which is weird because the character was nothing super special, but I don't know.
Krasinski plays Krasinski.
Yes.
And I like John Krasinski.
Yeah.
I like his character and I like his acting, but he is him everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. So.
All right. So that gives my total score was a 5.6 out of 10. Andrew's total was a 5.8 and Thomas's was a, I actually have the wrong number here, 5.2, which gives it a total pop culture contrarian rating of 5.53 repeating out of 10.
Yeah.
So, it's above average, barely, I guess.
Yeah.
If you would just want something to turn on and you have Apple TV, this is a pretty good thing to turn on. There will be no unpleasant surprises.
Well, what I am really curious to see is if they actually do another one, or if this is just going to be kind of a one-off. I'm not sure. They clearly set it up to do another one as far as the end, everybody's getting together and like, we're going on our next adventure, basically. But I'm wondering if they're waiting for ratings, reviews to come in and see if that even matters to them. They didn't send it to the theaters. So
on that note, Thomas. At the end, the girl Esme is talking to Luke, and she's like, they're flirting a little bit, and she's like, did you get what you wanted? And he said no, and she said, well, I'm not gonna kill you unless you go back after the Fountain of Youth, but if you give me a reason to chase you, I will. Parentheses, chase you, but that's not clear. It actually sounds like she's saying, I will kill you.
Yeah.
I don't know why she would continue chasing him if he's going after other artifacts, because apparently, as far as this movie tells us, her whole purpose was preventing people from finding the Fountain of Youth, which he has now found and used.
Yeah.
So she failed.
She did fail, but then she implies that there's other things she wants to protect. I guess that's just, plot hook for the next movie.
Yeah, it looks like they definitely were trying to do that. I won't be surprised if they have another movie, but I won't be surprised if they don't have another movie. It's kind of one of those things where I don't know what they're going to spend their money on doing. I just don't see this as launching this really new, exciting franchise where people are just banging on the doors to go see the next movie.
But if they did do another one with Guy Ritchie, with the whole cast and with Guy Ritchie, and they just gave it a year more to bake, I think it could be really good.
Yeah, this is probably one of the most disappointing Guy Ritchie films for me.
Yes, yeah, I agree, because I really like most of his other stuff. I don't think we talked about Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, but that came out last year, and I was a big fan.
Yeah, and then Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, those are fun.
Yeah,
he's got lots of good ones. All right, any final notes? Did we cover everything about this movie?
It's worth a watch, but nothing to write home about.
Yeah.
Well,
that's been our review from the Pop Culture Contrarians. Make sure to go like and subscribe our video on YouTube. Hit the bell icon so you know when we upload a new video. Find us wherever you find your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, whatever. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about, and we'll try to talk about it. We do look at the comments. We are brought to you by the Patriot Post, which is the oldest conservative news digest on the web. It's right and it's free. And we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
See you guys.